Let's make one thing clear from the start. Some empires do not collapse because of a single blow from the outside. Not a great invasion, not a single revolution, and not defeat in one war is what ends them. The real collapse often comes from somewhere much quieter, their own money. Because money is not just paper, money is trust. And when trust begins to dissolve, the army dissolves, taxes dissolve, and order dissolves. Today, I'm not telling a conquest story, not occupation, revolution, or a flag change. Not that. What I'm describing is the same cycle we've seen again and again throughout history: currency abundance, debasement, accelerated money creation, inflation, loss of trust, fragmentation. And while this process unfolds, those in power almost always repeat the same sentence: we're different. The old rules don't apply to us. None of them were different. Rome's denarius, Spain's silver, Britain's pound sterling. And now, in 2026, the US dollar. And today the question is, has the dollar collapsed? No. But has erosion begun? That's what we're going to talk about. The real question is, where are we in this cycle? At the beginning, in the middle, or at the end? History shows something striking. In the economic unraveling of empires, the word similarity is too mild. The sequence is almost identical, and to understand it, we need to clarify two things. First, empire equals permanent cost. Borders are costs. Navies are costs. Bases are costs. Bureaucracy is cost. Even maintaining alliances is a cost. Second, money equals a social contract. People pay taxes because they trust tomorrow. Soldiers fight because they believe their wages will hold value. Merchants trade because they assume the money they receive will still matter tomorrow. Now, let's build the cycle. Dominance. Trust exists in the currency. The army is strong. The system works. Overexpansion. The empire exceeds its capacity. Every new territory is a new cost. Structural deficits. Spending becomes permanently higher than income. The deficit stops being the exception and becomes the standard. Debasement, Mikey, money creation. Taxes aren't enough, borrowing gets expensive, and money begins to thin. Inflation. Money increases, goods and services do not increase at the same pace. Prices rise. Loss of trust. Inside the public, outside the world, begins to flee that currency. Collapse, fragmentation. The army can't be financed. Governance weakens. The center retreats or breaks. This isn't a fairy tale about fate, it's mathematics. You can't spend more than you earn forever. You can't print prosperity. You can't reduce the value of your currency and expect to avoid the price. Retention reset. 5 seconds. Now I'll make this concrete with 3 major examples, because theory alone doesn't convince. History does. Rome wasn't just a state, it was a system. And the invisible backbone of that system was trust in the currency. The denarius, circulating from around 211 BCE, contained high-purity silver for a long time. People knew this money keeps its promise. That's how trust is born. But empires are expensive. Every border needs soldiers. Every province needs bureaucracy. Every road, every fort, every garrison. Constant cost. Rome managed these costs for a time because, as it created order, its tax base expanded. Then the wall arrived. The returns of expansion fell while the costs rose. And the state faced 3 options: raise taxes, squeeze the people, destabilize social order. Borrow? But when borrowing becomes expensive, it becomes unsustainable. Thin the money, the easiest looking path. History shows that states most often choose the third, to thin the money. Under Nero, the silver content of the denarius is reduced. The logic is simple. With the same silver, you mint more coins. From the outside, it looks like more money, but inside, value is thinner. And the most dangerous part is this. The first step looks small because collapse begins slowly. But once you do it once, a second time comes easier. Once you do it a second time, a third becomes almost inevitable. Over time, the denarius stops being silver money and becomes a base metal piece with a thin silver coating. Think about it. A Roman soldier's salary is still paid in denarii. The face on the coin is the same. The name is the same. The inscription is the same. But the content has changed. The value has changed. Purchasing power has collapsed. While the state says nothing has changed, the market screams, everything has changed. The moment you feel money is being degraded, you don't want to hold it. When you don't hold it, you spend it faster. When you spend it faster, prices rise even more. This is the trust spiral. The result? Prices rise. People stop wanting money and flee into goods and even barter. Tax collection becomes harder. State revenue chokes. The army can't be paid, the frontier can't be held, and provinces begin to break away. Rome faced external pressures too, of course. But the breaking point is often internal hollowing. If the currency collapses, everything built on it cracks. Now let's go to the 1500s. The New World. Huge mines. Silver pouring out of Potosi. Spain looks for a time like the world's treasury. Its money circulates internationally and creates trust in trade. But money creates a paradox. If everyone has more money, that doesn't automatically mean everyone is richer. Money is not prosperity. Prosperity is production. Money is only a tool of exchange. If you multiply the tool excessively, its value falls. As Spain floods Europe with silver, prices rise. The silver can be pure, but it is no longer scarce. When scarcity disappears, perceived value erodes. But Spain's deeper mistake wasn't that the silver arrived. It was that Spain trusted the silver and neglected production. A country that doesn't produce can look rich while hollowing out from within. Spain consumed instead of producing. It burned wealth on wars instead of building industry. It poured money into palaces instead of innovation. It imported luxury. Money flowed in and flowed out just as fast. The end of such a system is debt. As debt grows, trust breaks. When trust breaks, interest rates rise and credit tightens. What does the state do? It usually takes the easy path. More money, less trust. Spain's lesson is clear. Even an endless seeming resource flow can't protect an empire from financial mismanagement. The problem isn't the amount of money, it's how the money is used. Britain's power wasn't just its navy, it was the trade network it built over centuries. And at the center of that network stood sterling. The gold standard anchored money. Trust was built almost like engineering. Then the wars came. World War I and World War II. Wars are the financial x-ray of empires. Debt grows. The gold standard strains. Convertibility is suspended. Money creation increases. After the wars, the world order changes. Reserve currency status gives a country two things: cheaper borrowing and a wider strategic operating range. But when reserve status begins to weaken, empire suddenly gets expensive. Because financing costs rise. Because carrying external deficits becomes harder. Because sustaining geopolitical commitments becomes heavier. Under Bretton Woods, as the dollar rose, sterling was pushed to the background. Devaluations followed. Each one eroded trust. As trust eroded, capital fled and costs rose. And Britain saw this. Holding the empire became not militarily impossible, but economically unsustainable. This isn't sudden disappearance. It's an example of controlled decline. The state survives, but the empire dies. Is the US repeating the mistakes of the late Ottoman era? In the Ottoman Empire's final century, there wasn't one single final punch. There were accumulated fragilities, missing modernization, weak production capacity, institutional erosion, growing dependence on external finance, weakening central authority, and rising local power centers. Resources flowing not into sustainable prosperity, but into constant security costs. In the Ottoman case, one point is critical. As dependence on external finance grows, not only does the economy shrink, political room to maneuver shrinks too. Because debt isn't just money, debt buys your freedom of action. If your production base is weak, money and credit come from outside. As outside funding grows, internal discipline weakens. As the center weakens, coordination breaks. And when coordination breaks, the system develops friction. Today, some comparisons about the US highlight technology, AI and green energy, and China's pace. But the deeper similarity isn't technology, it's institutional resilience and financial discipline. Erosion of merit hollows institutions from within. Uncontrolled borrowing erodes independence. As the center weakens, fragmented politics grows. As resources are drained outward, the social contract strains. And at this point, the core issue is this. The collapse of an empire often doesn't begin with an external enemy. It begins with the internal unraveling of trust. Now to the critical question. Is the dollar collapsing? Today, the right word isn't collapse. The more accurate word is erosion. Collapse doesn't arrive in one day, but its signals are clear. The public doesn't want to hold the currency. The outside world rapidly searches for alternatives. The state struggles to roll its debt. And most importantly, a sudden break in trust. That is not the dollar's picture today. But that doesn't mean no risk, because the dollar's strength comes from two layers. Layer 1, network effects. The world uses the dollar because everyone uses the dollar. Trade invoices, commodity pricing, international debt markets. This network is not easy to break. Layer 2, market depth. One of the dollar's strongest weapons is the depth of the US Treasury market. When the world seeks safe haven, it wants a huge liquid market. So where does the problem begin? Reserve currency status is an advantage, but also a trap. As the world holds your money, you gain the ability to spend extra beyond normal limits. And at some point, deficits stop being exceptions and become standards. That's the dangerous threshold in the cycle, structural deficits. As interest on debt grows, the interest share and inside the budget rises. And as the interest share rises, there's less money for two things: productive investment and areas that relieve the public burden. That's why inflation isn't just prices, it's political pressure. The cost of living rises, inequality feels sharper, and the social contract strains. So where is the US in the cycle? Dominance still exists. Network effects exist. Market depth exists. But the structural deficit phase is real, and the pressure it creates makes trust more sensitive. Let's say this clearly. The dollar is not collapsing today, but the system is being pushed toward the phase where trust is questioned. So it's not the end, but it is the middle phase. And 5 signals will show it in the coming period. 1. Is the dollar's share in global reserves falling faster? 2. Is there a persistent risk premium in long-term treasury yields? 3. Are deficits truly shrinking, or is the debt path unsustainable? 4. Is the Fed regime shifting? Tight stance or reversal? The signal to markets. 5. Is the dollar's network role in global trade breaking or simply eroding? And this is where timing begins. Collapse is not a moment. It is trust being thinned month after month. Rome learned it as the denarius was debased. Spain learned it as silver floods eroded value. Britain learned it as reserve status faded. The Ottoman Empire learned it as modernization was missed and fragility grew. Now the question is this: is the US walking toward a breaking point it prepared with its own hands? And the harder question: if power shifts or fragmentation happens, what will the new structures do? Will they continue the same power politics and will build a more just order? Because real awakening isn't only empires falling, it begins with mindset changing. Otherwise, only the map changes. Oppression just changes addresses. If this perspective opened a new window for you, subscribe.